Well, good morning, and let me share with Catherine to welcome all of you here in Toronto at the Toronto Global Forum, but also online from around the world. So it may be morning here, I think in Wolfsburg, Germany, the headquarters of Volkswagen, it's the afternoon. And we're very honored and pleased and fortunate to have Thomas Schmall-von Westerholt, who is the technology chair. I think you can see him on screen as the chair of Volkswagen Technology Group. He is joining us, and guten Abend und wie geht's gut?
Hello, Jeffrey. Thanks. I'm fine. Mir geht's gut.
Sehr gut. Sehr gut. Now, I understand that, in fact, you're actually the overall chair of the group, Volkswagen Technology, Volkswagen Group in charge of the technology, but your focus, Thomas, is not so much on developing cars. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, in the group, I'm a group board member for technology inside Volkswagen, and I have 4 pillars I'm responsible for. First pillar is battery and cell, everything around, total vertical chain. Charging energy, second pillar. Third pillar is an internal supplier. We are calling Group Components, 40 billion business, 70,000 people world around. And the last pillar, the fourth pillar, is the interface to all served market businesses. If it's Ford or it's Mahindra in India, it's all about our desk here.
And there's a Canadian connection as well, and it's part of what we'll chat about today, Thomas. What is Volkswagen, other than selling cars and leasing cars in Canada? They're exceptional vehicles loaded with lots of tech, but the vehicle industry is changing. Your own personal involvement with Canada, have you been here? What's Volkswagen generally doing here in Canada, particularly around your focus on technology?
Yeah. Yes, I have been several times in Canada. I'm 30 years inside Volkswagen. 30 years is a long time, and half of my time I spent it professionally out of Germany. So I stayed 8 years in South America and in several other regions. And one of my duties was also to visit the whole supply chain in Canada. What is a perfect supply chain? We are 17 years in Canada as Volkswagen. It shows you the importance of the country for us. It's a strong partner for us in North America. And for sure, the last movements we did have been in August. If I've been personally in Toronto, signing an MOU with your government to strengthen the vertical chain in battery business.
And that's a Volkswagen MOU with Canada itself. And was that part of the Chancellor's visit to Canada recently? Were you part of that delegation coming to look at how the two countries and two economies could support each other?
Yes, we used the opportunity of the visit of the Chancellor to did the signing public. It was really a strong negotiation period in the last months after Davos. This was for Champagne. I met him first time there personally. And then we speeded up the whole process. And we had been able to sign an MOU what have several content. One content is to establish a local office in Canada, what is not the most difficult part. Then we're discussing, it's a little bit more difficult, about the critical minerals, the material chain supply, especially cathode material, and the rest is possibilities for production of cells, probably.
Well, earlier in this conference on Monday, I believe it was, Minister François-Philippe Champagne was speaking at the conference, and he spoke about this relationship, and particularly critical minerals and EV batteries and charging, et cetera, and all of that. And you get the sense every time you get to meet, and you've met him, François-Philippe Champagne, it's like he's his own battery. He has more energy, I think, than a hydrogen fuel cell. So it's terrific that he's representing Canada and putting agreements together with you. I was reading somewhere, Thomas, and I didn't fully understand it, but there's also in North America, Canada included, there's a program or some activity around Electrify Canada and Electrify America. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that and how Volkswagen is part of that.
Yes, if you are part of the new EV world, you need supply a fully ecosystem for the customer. It's not sufficient supplying only an electric car. You need also take care that the charging infrastructure is available. And for that reason, we have 3 activities worldwide under my umbrella of group technology. It's Electrify America, it's so-called Electrify Europe, and we have business in China we are calling CAM. So we have in more or less all over the world activities establishing, running, rolling out charging infrastructure. And if you look to the high performance of Giovanni Palazzo, is our head of Electrify America, what he's doing in US and Canada is really amazing. We are since 2018 online working on that, and we are more or less on the same level as Tesla in North America. We establish a kind of boost plan to build up 10,000 hyperfast chargers in North America until 26. What is an amazing number?
Well, exactly, and that's going to be really necessary, that network for electric vehicles to be able to function in Canada. I personally have an interest in this space because I serve on the board of the Toronto Parking Authority, and we have on-street parking, we have parking lots, and we're looking too at how to make our parking lots fueling stations and places for electric vehicle charging across our city, and I know other parking authorities and other entities are looking at that too. Now, Thomas, you mentioned opening up an office in Canada, and this Battery Focus, it's a subsidiary that I believe you've created under your technology group. Could you tell us more about, I believe you call it PowerCo, which is you may have paid a lot from a New York branding agency for that, but PowerCo is very good. Tell us a little bit more about PowerCo, and tell us a little bit more about what that subsidiary, its footprint here in Canada, at least to start.
I think it's difficult to get more power than Francois Champagne, but we did it with the power company. We created because in that new business, two reasons matters. That means volume and speed. You need really speed in that. And imagine a complex company as Volkswagen with all these huge and heavy processes we have. If we run a business in the new world and try to be fast, this probably will not be successful. That was the reason why I thought it's a good idea to found a separate company, a unit entity we are calling Power Company. The Power Company is bundling worldwide all battery and cell activities for the Volkswagen Group. It has its own board. It's a legal entity. It's running since 6 months. All I'm talking about is we are done in the last 12 months. Give you an example. We have worldwide talents, 400, the first 400, and we like to raise it up to 3,000 people. We have 5 pillars in that Power Company. One pillar is for sure the technology roadmap, research development of cells. Second is industrialization of the cells. That means production in cell factories. Only for Europe, we announced as Volkswagen 6 gigafactories, 6 until 2030. That means from 25 onwards, every year, a launch of a new factory. The vertical chain, the third pillar, we need to take care about the critical minerals. As you know, one most important issue in the cell business. We are talking about also storage systems, because the new and sustainable energy, you need 30% of future battery and cell capacity for storage systems. That is a huge profit pillar and a profit pool for all companies in the future. And we think we have good synergies with PowerCo. And the last of that, because the battery business is full of challenges of bottlenecks. And one of the bottlenecks is also the equipment to produce cells. So we decided also to to find and sign MOUs and joint ventures with partners for producing our own equipment for our own cell factories, but also everything we are doing in cell and equipment, it's third market available. That means we will sell that also for third market parties.
Well, on the third parties, Thomas, we will have in the audience here a number of angel investors. They invest in startups, mentoring startups. Angel Investors Ontario, we have a conference here today linked with the Toronto Global Forum. They'd be interested to know if there are Ontario-based new technologies, some know-how that is incubated and started up in Canada. Would your PowerCo office be a potential partner to talk to about Ontario-based innovations that are related to EVs? Is that, will there be some possibility now that you have this footprint here?
Yes, that's the reason why we did it local. We are a really strong believer, and as I worked 30 years, 50% out of Europe, I'm a strong believer in local management. And if there's any interest, for sure you can have the first contact with our local office. Today it's recently focused on vertical material chain, that means critical minerals, but it will grow. We have technology partners, especially in the US region. We are cooperating with QuantumScape, as you know. We have a joint venture with 24M to produce cells in a semi-solid process, what gives you a 30% investment, a 50% space improvement. So we have a lot of really high sophisticated technology partners in the North American region. And for sure, we'll announce also activities in Canada.
And the network that's being built, there's a difference, I think, in your approach or philosophy, electrify, can electrify, USA. How does that compare, or is it different than the Tesla supercharger network that we've also heard something about?
I think from the technology side, it's comparable. We have a little bit more high-speed chargers. We have a little bit more capacity in our charging system. But from the bottom line, you can really compare all activities among us. It's a question now who is rolling out faster. We have an open network. It's not closed only for our kind of cars. We have a multi-OEM platform because we are interested and believe in platform business. So that's, I think, the main difference.
So if I understood you correct, you have kind of an open system that can charge all kinds of EVs, and the Tesla model is really superchargers for Teslas. Is that basically it?
Exactly, that's it.
And I think you're quoted as saying at some point that it's the battery, not the engine anymore, that's really the heart of a new car. This batteries, how available are the batteries going to be if there is indeed the growth in demand and people are purchasing electric vehicles? Are the batteries going to be easily available? You touched on critical minerals. Is there going to be a glut of batteries in 10 years? Or in fact, is people going to be scrambling around to find batteries for the electric vehicles for all kinds of manufacturers, not just Volkswagen?
That's a really complex question. And if you're asking why I'm staying awake at night, it's really battery. Because a battery, we are belonging 95, 98% actually every OEM today to Asian suppliers. And that is a strategic point, because we need to be a little bit more independent from that technology. That's the reason why we are founding our own battery supply company to secure volume and technology. We are not accepting to sit in the middle of a bus and looking where the driver is going. We as Volkswagen, we are in technology lead, and we like to drive the bus.
So that was really part of the strategy of setting up your own battery cell company, is really part of making sure it's available and not just rely on the existing traditional players that are in the battery cell manufacturing right now. It's a fairly strategic move about availability and certainty of supply.
Yeah, availability at one point. Second, you need to, as everybody in the room knows, you need to achieve a certain cost point. And if you have nothing to compare, and if you have nothing to negotiate, you can say only yes and yes, thank you. What is not the position we like to be in the future. That's the reason why we secure volume, we secure price and cost. For sure, we will not do every cell by our own. We are really heavily interested to have a fair portion of internal, external supplying. But also the technology, because intelligent in the battery, it's chemistry. And this is where we are working strongly to get unique selling points for our customers in the future as today.
And the intent, I think, also was announced, and Thomas, maybe you can shed some more light on that, gigafactories. There's a fairly ambitious plan, if I understand it, that just in a few years, Volkswagen, at least in Europe, is planning to develop 6 gigafactories that are going to be producing these batteries. Is that correct? And what kind of investment does that involve?
Yeah, that's correct. Only in Europe, we announced 6 factories. Probably we will also do 1 in North America, and probably additional ones worldwide. That means we are taking part of a global network. We have a technology roadmap we are calling Unified Cell concept. Unified Cell, it's unified. That means we have the same format, same geometry, and we are working with a chemistry that gives a huge flexibility and low complexity. What is, I think, the secret of cheap cell production and efficient cell production. We will ramp up 6 factories in Europe. The first one will be in Salzgitter. Second one we announced is in Valencia in 26, 25 Salzgitter, 26 Valencia. And we will announce number 3 and 4 until the end of the year, the locations.
So 3 more to go in terms of setting locations. Any chance one of those could pop across the ocean and maybe have one of the gigafactories in Canada to support our integrated North American motor vehicle industry?
I'm really happy that no journalists are participating in that meeting, so I can tell it frank and open. But you need to imagine that battery and cells are logistic-wise a huge complex issue and make no sense to have in one country as South or North America, in Canada especially, a strong amount of critical minerals. Then you have cassette material close to the critical minerals. Then you bring all the material, and it's not a small amount. It's a big amount of critical minerals you bring to Europe, making the cells and then shipping it back. It sounds a little bit as a miles and more program for an air company, and that makes no sense. Yeah, we should produce local for local. That means probably not only Volkswagen. We will see a lot of cell factories in North America also.
Well, thinking global and acting local has been a part of sustainable development mantra for quite some time. You'd mentioned in the MOU, one of the pillars, one of the topics that you're focusing on is critical minerals. And François-Philippe Champagne talked about that earlier in this conference, about that is a Canadian capability. You know, we're a safe jurisdiction. There's all kinds of minerals in Canada that are relevant to lithium, cobalt, etc., relevant to the auto EV cars, but also the batteries. Do you see that as a big challenge to make sure that there is enough critical minerals? I've been told many times that if you take a combustion engine car, your average vehicle, and you compare that to an electric vehicle, the amount of these critical minerals, whether it's copper, cobalt, lithium, etc., is massively more in a new electric vehicle. And then there's the battery too, which is different. Could you talk a little bit about that and what your thoughts are around how to mitigate and how to deal with the critical minerals that will be required and their security of supply for companies?
Yeah, that's one of the most critical points in cell supply. Some years before, everybody thought that maybe it's sufficient to have reserved capacity of cell production. But as we see, the demand is exploding of EVs. And if you see that the customers accepting it and that e-mobility won the race, we have 50% of our product portfolio in the next 8 years transformed to electric vehicles. 50%, what is a huge amount? That means we will not have sufficient capacity for mining and explore raw materials. Raw materials or critical minerals are available in a sufficient amount. It's not that we have a shortage of that. The problem is we need a whole new industry, for mining capacity. We don't have today any processes can achieve the supply demand we have. That means we will see huge changes and dramatic moves in that value chain, but it's necessary to secure it because it makes no sense to have a plant without material and otherwise also not. That means we need to take care about the whole vertical chain. That means critical minerals, cathode materials, cell production, the first use in a car, and then a closed loop approach in recycling. Because finally, as smartphone suppliers do it today, actually, the 98% of their minerals in the batteries of a smartphone will be recycled and will come back in the system. And this will happen also 2030, 2035 onwards.
So that's really interesting. A way of dealing with the needs of to make more batteries is actually to recycle the ones that are used. And is the technology there to take a used battery and refurbish it and make it effective again? And what about swapping out batteries? Do you see us pulling up in a fine Volkswagen electric vehicle and in 10 minutes the old battery is replaced and a new battery is put in and something happens with the original battery?
Okay, this is a question with two answers. One is swapping, and swapping is the advantage of fast charging time. We will see two movements. In some areas, in regions where we don't have any possibility for charging infrastructure, you will have probably space for swapping systems. Swapping gives you the opportunity to swap your battery system in 2 to 4 minutes, probably. What is really high speed and what is really satisfying the customer need in the regions where we don't have any infrastructure for charging with wall boxes or any other charging facilities. That's the swapping point. Another point, the recycling, what you mentioned, will be growing. Yeah, it's a huge part of having a closed loop. That means in some years, probably we will be more and more independent from mining activities. We have the first pilot projects and equipment installed, even running, and we are over 90% recovery of minerals. That gives you an idea of how big the potential is in recycling of critical minerals.
Well, Thomas Schmall, in this short conversation, we've come full circle, like the circular economy, from the materials that are needed to manufacture the batteries, the value added, the technology involved in that, and then to bring it back, recycling, and put it back into the system for the next set of batteries and continued innovation. Just on behalf of the Toronto Global Forum, I really want to thank you very much for participating with us. I know this interview will be up on YouTube at some point. You and I may end up doing some kind of dance, and we'll be on TikTok to some kind of music. So again, let me thank you, and thank you for the participation of our audience here in Toronto and those online. We wish you a great afternoon in Wolfsburg at the headquarters of Volkswagen, and we'll continue today with the next session here in Toronto. So, Thomas Schmall, Dankeschön und auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you, Jeffrey. My kids will be really happy appearing on YouTube.